But I want to start off with a story. Apologies for anyone who was in shul on Friday night. It's the same story, but I think it's quite powerful. It's a story about October the 7th, which really frames the situation of the Jewish people today, what we face as a Jewish people from an internal perspective. A disclaimer for this story is that some people find these stories quite difficult because of perhaps the implications of what we're saying. And I wanted to say from the start that no tragedy that befalls the Jewish people, October the 7th, the Holocaust, I just came back from Poland, a trip which we can also potentially talk about as well, whether it's 1290, the expulsion of the Jews, 1492, right? Whether it's the tragedy this week of the adoption of the Kairos document by the Church of England and the ramifications of that. These things are beyond they're beyond our understanding from God's perspective. We can't try and understand and play God. However, there are still within our ability to draw inspiration from certain events which we can see the hand of God, we can see divine providence. And that's the context in which I tell this story, which I heard this week. And the story is, and it was March 2023, and a young man, married man, called Yaakov, a secular man, not a religious man, was on Kavish Aleph. For those who know Kavish Aleph, the main motorway tributary between Tel Aviv, the secular center of Israel, some people call it, and Jerusalem, the religious center of Israel. And there he's on his journey, and like me, once upon a time, he ran out of petrol. He ran out of petrol. And people are driving past, bumper to bumper, as they do in Israel. They don't keep their distance, if you've ever driven there. Yes. And nobody's stopping to help him. And he's really stranded. And it's dangerous, very dangerous. Eventually, after quite a while, a man in a car stops. And out comes a very religiously dressed man in full religious garb, what you might call a chassid or the ultra-Orthodox. And he sees this man in distress, Yaakov, and he comes to him and says, what's the matter? He tells him, says, no problems, I'll go and buy to the nearest gas station and buy you gas, petrol, whatever it is, in a can, and come back, see you soon. And so this is what they do, and he says, my name's Yehuda, by the way. He goes, gets his petrol, comes back, puts the petrol in. Yaakov turns, you can imagine the appreciation on his face. He's been saved from this terrible bother and inconvenience and challenge. And he says, how much do I pay you? How much do I owe you? And Yehuda says, you pay me? Shabbos. There's no way you're going to pay me. It's not Shabbat. Trust me, Yehuda's not driving on Shabbat. And he says, there's no way you're paying me. This is a special favor. I'm happy to do this. It's a great mitzvah for me to do. Mitzvah tovah. And Yaakov is really overwhelmed. And he turns to Yehuda and he says, I need to show you something. I'm a little bit embarrassed. I'm a bit ashamed of myself. Takes him to the back of the car. And if you've ever been to Israel, you'll know that politics is played out on the bumper stickers of people's cars. There's all sorts of bumper stickers, right, on the backs of cars. And he had a bumper sticker, which I actually checked up. I Googled this bumper sticker. It goes from the 1980s to the 2000s, this bumper sticker. And it's obviously remained on his car ever since. And it's a bumper sticker that says, Lahadros, Lidros et Hadat. To trample on religion. This is a sticker which is the epitome of the secular left, who are anti-religious. We don't know whether it's a small minority, but a small minority of Jews who are hardliners, and they really are anti-religion in every way, shape or form. And of course we know there are major tensions in Israel. There has been since the very inception of the state, from 1948 until today. There's been so much factionalism between the religious, the different sects within religion, and the secular and the different sects within it. He's pretty in-your-face statement, Lidros es hadas, to destroy or to trample on religion. Get rid of religion. We don't want it controlling our lives. Okay, we can understand. He says, I'm so sorry. I've never met a religious Jew before. This is how I was taught, and you have broken the bubble. And so today, if you're not letting me pay for the petrol, at the very least, I want to show you this. And he takes the bumper sticker and takes it off. Beautiful. Yehuda's touched by this and says, let's exchange numbers. And maybe we'll be in touch. You know, I've had these types of things happen to me. You exchange numbers, and what happens a couple of weeks later, you've forgotten all about it. Life goes on. The inspiration's dissipated. But this was different. Yehuda, who's not really come into contact with secular people living where he lives. Where does he live? Bnei Barak. And where does Yaakov live? He tells Yehuda, I live in a place called Kibbutz Be'eri. Now, we all know what Kibbutz Be'eri is, but back then in March 2023, if I said to you, have you ever heard of Kibbutz Be'eri? Probably most of you had not heard of Kibbutz Be'eri. Here in England, we give lots of money to the UJIA that deals with the north of Israel, Marom HaGalil. You may be able to tell me different places there, but it's a small little kibbutz. And he'd never been, Yaakov, to Bnei Barak, which is a very serious religious center of Judaism and Jewish learning. So Yehuda begins by calling him on a Friday afternoon, and this happens week after week, until eventually Yaakov gets a bit bored and is a bit torn. He's like, well, I'm not really going anywhere. We're not really sort of, hello, Shabbat Shalom. It's like he feels incumbent because he did me a favor. He saved me. So he thinks, you know what, I'll pluck up the Israeli courage to speak my mind. And he says, Yehuda, I have a question. You wish me Shabbat Shalom every week, but what is Shabbat? Like, do you really enjoy Shabbat with your family? I mean, we are free to go to do barbecues. We can go to the beach. We can go shopping. We can do whatever we want. And you are so encumbered with all these rules I've heard about and read about, seen in the TV, whatever, depicted of. It seems so restricted. So Yehuda's not a rabbi, not trained in any way, shape or form, just says very innocently and authentically, no words can describe what Shabbat means to me and my family and how much it changes who I am as a person. The only way I could possibly start or begin to explain to you what Shabbat is if you would come for Shabbat. And so maybe you'll think about coming to Shabbat, to Bnei Barak. Suddenly it becomes a little bit more withdrawn, seeing the implication of his question. And so a few more weeks goes past, and Yaakov plucks up the courage and says, yes, I'm ready to come and visit you. Yehuda, also now a little bit unsure, says, okay, I'll speak to my wife. My rabbi, what's the best Shabbat to invite you? And he's having a discussion with his rabbi. And the rabbi says, well, it's coming up to Rosh Hashanah now. Quite a few months have gone past since March. And Rosh Hashanah is not a good time. They go through the calendar. Yom Kippur, not a very good time, obviously. Even Sukkot's not such a good time because so much busy with the Sukkahs and the Lulav and the Esrog. And then this set upon Simchas Torah. Of course, Simchas Torah that year in Israel is on Shabbat. And he says to the rabbi, but the problem is on Simchat Torah, I have to look after my father, and we go to Sderot, which is ironically only 20 kilometers or so away, or 17 kilometers away from Kibbutz Be'eri. Sderot, we all know, is a town that's had so many rockets over the years. So the rabbi says, what's the problem? This year, bring your father over to Bnei Barak and bring Yaakov and his family over to the Bnei Barak. One Simchas Torah, one happy family, and that's what they do. And of course, at 6:30 in the morning on October the 7th, his father, who was in Sderot, is now in Bnei Barak. And Yaakov and his family, who are in Kibbutz Be'eri, are now not in Kibbutz Be'eri, under attack. They're in Bnei Barak, enjoying it, trying to enjoy, at least they've been saved. They come back after this October the 7th, and they find both of them that their father's house was near the police station in Sderot, which infamously got burnt. His house was destroyed, and so too was the house in Kibbutz Be'eri. And of course, we see from this story such a powerful thing, how instead of Sinat Chinam, which seems to be the cause of the fractions in our Jewish people, going back 2,000 years, the temple was destroyed, we're taught by our sages, because of hatred b'chinam. B'chinam means baseless hatred that has no purpose, no reason. The irony is there is no reason to ever hate another Jew, because every single Jew is really part of one family. Instead of that, it's been transformed into Ahavat Chinam, both from Yehuda, who initiated, to Yaakov, and from Yaakov to Yehuda. It's a beautiful, beautiful sort of symbolic story of how we can transform our lives in so many different ways by just breaking out of our bubble, by seeing another human being to start with as a human being before we put labels on them and judgments. It's very, very easy in our fast-paced life today to categorize people, to judge them, to prejudge. And once we've done that, we're no longer curious, and it becomes very, very difficult to reach out to them with bonds of love. So that's the first story, sort of introduction story I wanted to share with you, which I think segues on nicely to what you're going to talk about.
Thank you.
It's a good one.
Anybody have any comments before? I know we can't really follow that story. It's so powerful.
It's a powerful story.
It's so powerful. It's unreal. but it is real. So
It's a real story. It's a
Yeah.
real
Yes.
story. Now, obviously, I said at the beginning, the disclaimer, we're not saying that, because everybody else didn't like each other and was bad to each other, therefore they got destroyed. Chas v'shalom, God forbid. We don't understand the hand of God. We can't understand the tragedy. When Moshe Rabbeinu came to the burning bush, when he's coming to take the Jewish people out, he comes to the burning bush and he sees a bush that's burning but not being consumed. And he says, I'll turn now and go and have a look at this. So you see, number one, he's like a scientist. He's curious. That's the first thing you have to be in life, is curious about something that's outside of your understanding, your current frame of reference, or what they call in psychology your current paradigm. If you're not willing, if you wouldn't know, very nice, I'm busy, I'm busy, I've got to get to work. Who cares about a bush that's burning and not being consumed? There's no revelation. He comes and he's told a very interesting thing. He's told, take off your shoes, for the land which you are standing on is holy. And what is this burning bush? And he's told